If you clicked on this video as a Gears of War fan, you're probably thinking, hell yeah, Gears is finally getting the recognition it deserves. But if you clicked on this video not as a Gears fan, you're probably like, what? This dude is really going to make the case that a third-person shooter from almost 20 years ago is better competitively than Halo, Counter-Strike, and Overwatch? Well, yes, I am. To this day, Gears remains unmatched in its hype level, in its flashiness, and perhaps most notably, its clutch factor. From a strategic standpoint, Gears also shined. While seemingly basic to the more casual or less knowledgeable viewer, competitive Gears teams had to be well versed in teamwork. They had to come to a match prepared with an arsenal of calculated and carefully considered strategies, particularly at the start of a round. It required a highly competent in-game leader to navigate the complexities of every situation and guide the team forward. We're going to dive deeper into each of these, but first, we have to examine the basics. Gears is a game somewhat forgotten to the modern audience, but was once one of gaming's most premier shooters. Gears pit the struggling humanity against the aggressive Locust Horde, a nightmarish race of creatures hailing from the depths of our planet and hell-bent on destroying all of human civilization. We took control of Marcus Phoenix, the leader of a small squad of human soldiers traversing a planet on the verge of total collapse. The game was bleak and apocalyptic, engrossing the player in a punishing, horror-like atmosphere. The game is gritty and intense, with an emphasis placed on over-the-top violence. It's characterized by brutal executions, curb stomps, completely decimated corpses, headshots that pop your head off and erupt in blood, and most famously, the chainsaw. Gears showed up on the scene in 2006 and quickly turned heads as a viable, competitive game, and it did so as a third-person shooter in an FPS-dominated world. What set Gears apart was its completely fresh take on a cover system, enabling players to snap in and out of cover with the press of one button. The ease of the system allowed for faster and flashier combat, much more so than a few of Gears' third-person competitors of the era, like the slower Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. In 2007, Gears got picked up by Major League Gaming and for a while stood as the now legendary esports organization's second most prominent game under Halo. It also had a strong presence online on the now defunct GameBattles.com. Gears is a 4 vs 4 game. In MLG and in other tournaments of the time, it was played in a game mode called Execution, a round-based mode in which each player had just one life and there was no respawning. The only goal was to eliminate the other team before they eliminated you. That's it. There were no other objectives and there were no other game modes played. A game would end with one team winning 4 rounds, while matches were decided on first to 2 or 3 games. Execution also had one other unique attribute. If a player wasn't chunked or headshotted, meaning their character's body wasn't completely decimated, they would be downed. And in a downed state, a player could only be killed from extreme close range, symbolizing an execution. In that state, they could be quickly revived by a nearby teammate, or they would get up by themselves in 20 to 30 seconds if they could survive that long. This made the act of securing kills much more challenging and added an extra element of strategy into the game. It also ended up serving as a greater incentive for close-range play. Gears also had a relatively high time to kill, at least from range and without power weapons. The shotgun, a close-range weapon, was an exception, with the potential to one-shot. With the shotgun and the game mode itself both incentivizing in-your-face combat, Gears was often characterized by close-range gunfights and skirmishes. Competitive Gears was played on 6 maps, 5 of which were perfectly symmetrical. Teams would spawn at opposite sides and compete for map control and for the control of extremely potent power weapons, which were placed precisely in the middle of the map and of equal distance away from both teams. On a couple of maps, certain weapons, usually a sniper or frag grenades, were placed for each team to pick up near their own spawn. This may all sound simple, and it was, but that doesn't mean that it didn't lead to complexity in its gameplay. As an example, let's take a look at the all-time classic map, Gridlock. Gridlock is a symmetrical map with 3 power weapons placed at various locations in the middle, the boomshot, or the rocket launcher, the sniper rifle, and 2 frag grenades. The boomshot is the most powerful weapon in all of Gears, but it's balanced by only having 2 rounds of rockets, and on Gridlock, it's balanced further by being placed on the low ground and in a poor position offering no map control. The sniper, on the other hand, is located in the sniper tower, which oversees the entire map. Frags, which were also very strong, are placed in between the two. Before a round would start, a team would have to make a choice. What would they prioritize? Getting the sniper rifle, a strong weapon but one weaker than the boomshot and securing greater map control, was one option. Getting the powerful boomshot but having to fight for map control after, and having to do so from a weak position, was another option. A third option was remaining flexible and not hard committing to either weapon. And this is just scratching the surface. Teams could also go for fancier, crazier, trick strategies by flanking the opposite team at either sniper rifle or boom spawn, or even rushing 4 in the middle and seeking absolute chaos. It's become a serious cliche to compare things to chess nowadays, but as a chess player myself, deciding a Gears opening strat was similar to deciding a chess opening. Do you go for something orthodox for reliability and safety, but something that your opponent is well studied for? Or do you go for something a bit more dubious, but something your opponent might get totally caught off guard by? This was always running through a strat caller's mind. A common opening strategy on Gridlock was to send 3 members to Snipe Tower, who would be ready to hard engage there if the other team did the same, while the other member went to Boomshot by himself to just provide a little resistance. If the other team did the same strat, you'd see an even battle at both locations. But if they were met with the common 2-2 strat, which consisted of 2 of the opposing players going to both Boom and Snipe, an interesting situation would play out. With 3 at Sniper Tower, Team A would feel pressure to exercise their advantage and win that engagement by either killing the 2 enemies there, or by at least getting Sniper, gaining control of the tower, and flushing the enemy out back where they came. At Boom, the team of 2 would feel forced to expel the lone opposing player from the area quickly and pick up Boom. If both majorities were able to push out both oppositions, which often wasn't the case due to Gears' high individual skill ceiling, a rotation battle would begin. Team A's sniper at Sniper Tower would usually attempt to hit a headshot on the opposing Team B, who would seek to rotate out of the poor position of Boomshot spawn and force their way into Snipe Tower, flushing Team A out. If Team B was successful in capturing Sniper Tower and flushing Team A out, the game would slow down and tension would rise. The ball would be in Team B's court, and they would inevitably seek to push Team A. Team A, though disadvantaged, would at least know the enemy would end up pushing and they could be ready for it. They'd also have a chance for a headshot as the push began. Even though its action and gunfights are fast, Gears is a slow-paced game strategically. When you look at other shooters, that often isn't the case. Halo, as an example, is fast-paced, usually throughout. The situation is always changing in Halo. Players are always on the move, players die and respawn in other areas, and the game always remains in a fluid state. It's a lot less predictable, which can be exciting, but in my opinion it's harder to follow for the viewer and can feel more random as a player. Gears isn't like this. Gears has plenty of static situations. Because of this, the game plays more intentionally, it's more focused. In stalemate situations, which were common in Gears, you had time to talk with your teammates about what the plan should be. In the Gridlock situation I described, possible talking points from Team A could sound like this. If they try to push Boom when it respawns, what are we going to do? Should we go on the aggressive? Or, hey guys, I think I saw the guy with Boomshot not watching the middle. I think we have a chance to catch them off guard and take back Sniper Tower. Or, are frags back? Let's make a play for them. We can throw them in Snipe Tower and flush them out. You often had time to talk all this through. Because the game had this many slower and more controlled situations, the individual moments and plays were often bigger. Gears' slower strategic pace plays a direct role in contributing to its hype and excitement. The pop-offs were just better. Gameplay in Gears differed widely by the map. War Machine, undisputably the game's best map, played out much differently than Gridlock. Instead of a dominant snipe tower and rotations dictating play, the map offered more of a hold the line type of playstyle and was more position based. On one side of the map sat a sniper rifle on the low ground. Due to its poor position and War Machine having much more cover, it was significantly less powerful than on Gridlock. Usually, one player from each team went here and fought a 1v1 from a distance, jockeying for position and threatening to pick up Sniper if the opposing player was focused elsewhere. In the middle, usually 2 players on each team would vie for map control. One player would typically play the window position, a tough role requiring aggression and high shotgun skill. The other would either sit back and support the window player, or get aggressive himself by taking wide angles or attempting a push. Both players would seek control of the nearby Torbo, a highly lethal crossbow that one-shotted enemies. Finally, the last player, usually the 1v1 specialist, would pick up frags which were given to each team and then head upstairs to a more isolated 1v1 encounter. The beauty of War Machine was that each player could help his teammates out with their respective battles. The player at Sniper could pepper opponents in the middle with long-range fire, and players in the middle could do the same for their Sniper teammate. You could coordinate a rush on the fly, with one middle player ditching his position and attempting to blitz the opposing Sniper player with the help of his Sniper teammate, for example. The up top player, likewise, could ditch his battle and help his teammates in the middle. All of these decisions had high risk-reward. Let's consider the dual rush on the Sniper player. If the opposing team realized what was happening, or was ready for it, the player being rushed would have time to flee and run to the middle. The rushing team may secure the Sniper rifle, but lose the powerful Torbo and important control of the middle. In the other example, if the opposing team realized the up top player had gone downstairs, their up top player may have enough time to rain Lancer machine gun fire down on the rest of the map and even get on the super powerful Troika turret, which oversaw the map. These decisions, some of which had to be made quickly while others could be more calculated, had to be made by quick thinking players and a highly competent in-game leader. Pros and cons always had to be weighed. The opposing team's position always had to be surveyed and analyzed for weaknesses, even if that weakness was only fleeting. The better teams would be able to capitalize on a weakness or mistake quickly, either by pushing, applying ranged pressure to it, or by threatening to pick up power weapons, which would demand a response from the opponent. They also had to understand where their own weaknesses were, with more isolated players having to realize the exact danger they were in and how far they could push their own matchups. Teamwork and strategy were critical in Gears, a game with an extremely technical skill ceiling as well. So much so that a debate would often get brought up. Which was more important, skill or teamwork? I know this sort of debate exists across many games, but for Gears, I think it was heightened. There were teams, one obvious example being the Insanes, one of the best Gears teams in history, who were good primarily for their immense teamwork, especially at the start of a round. These guys would plan everything out to a T before a round. Setups were detailed. Each player's route from spawn was exactly calculated beforehand. Smoke grenades will land in precise spots, and coordination between teammates was perfect. Teams like the Insanes thrived under order. Other teams, like Infinity for example, probably considered the very best Gears team in history, were scrappier. They'd still plan things out beforehand, but not to the level of the Insanes, instead focusing on adaptability and relying on individual players to make plays. They wanted more chaotic situations harder to navigate using teamwork, and better suited for intuitive, instinctive play. Gears allowed for both styles of play to not only exist, but thrive. Okay, now that we've scratched the surface of Macroplay, I can make a whole video dedicated to this alone. Let's take a look at how Gears was played at a micro level, the individual fights and the mechanics. And that brings me to another of Gears' top attributes, hype. Each player in Gears spawned with the same weapons. The consistent and primary ranged weapon, the Lancer assault rifle, the more powerful but slightly more difficult to use snub pistol, a smoke grenade, and most importantly, the Gnasher shotgun. As I mentioned earlier, Gears has a relatively high time to kill compared to other shooters, particularly with the Lancer and pistol. Power weapons, however, like Boom, Sniper, and Torbo, all had one-shot capabilities, and so did the shotgun. And as the only starting weapon without a high time to kill, players were often incentivized to get into close-range combat, especially if they were down in the round or really had to take map position quickly. Shotgun fights took incredibly high skill, and were really, well, other than winning tournaments, the main way egos were built. Back A's off of cover. Up A'ing and chunking someone in one move. Canceling a cover swap and up A'ing someone in the chest. Roadie run fakeouts and wild movement. Out strafes, and perhaps most famously, decimating someone with a wall bounce. When a player slides into cover in Gears, a speed boost is applied as they're traveling to that cover. This would lead to an important tactic, especially when lots of cover was available, as players could sort of just fly around, getting in and out of cover and taking shots at high speeds. This wall bouncing mechanic, especially when combined with the other skillful shotgun shots and tactics I just mentioned, was enough to pump spectators and players up alike. Due to its difficulty and the nature of Gears' extreme violence, with heads popping off and bodies exploding into fragments, it made you feel like a total boss when you pulled off some of these kills. Somewhere from the deep, your aggressive instinct would emerge, and you'd be tempted heavily into straight up annihilating your victim with trash talk after the round.
Yo, look at me!
47
yo,
seconds.
Let me change the diapers, yo! You shit the bed! You shit yourself! You shit yourself! You guys crumbling like a bag of chips!
On Mansion specifically, the smallest competitive map, rounds were often decided in seconds, with one player being able to wall bounce his way through multiple enemies in quick succession. The player who played the statue position had to be well versed in the bounce. He had to be able to sense the faintest potential to make something happen, and he himself had to be aware that the enemy was going to fly at him. Let's take a quick look at the power weapons of Gears. Of the three primary ones, Sniper, Torbo, and Boomshot, two were crowd favorites. First was the Torbo, a crossbow that shot an explosive arrow that stuck in the enemy's body before exploding a second later, instantly resulting in death. The gun took extreme accuracy and experience, as it wasn't a hit-scan weapon. It had to be charged up to fire, and it only had 6 shots. The other team would also be alerted by a sound as it was being charged, giving them a heads up that they should take cover. The other hype weapon was the Sniper. The Sniper was hard to use in Gears, but if a player was good enough, he could truly take over the game. Any OGs watching this video will remember names like Jerome, Inertia, Excels, Hudson's, and Mental, and how notorious they were for their skill with the weapon. Countless montages were made featuring only kills from this weapon. The Boomshot, while less flashy, still required discipline and courage. You only had 2 shots, so you had to make them count. Juke attempts by the opposing team were common, and skillful boom players had to have calm trigger fingers to not whiff shots. But at the same time, a boom player couldn't wait too long to fire, or he might not get another chance. There was a fine line between caution and confidence with this weapon. Gears' hype, whether it was through insane shotgun gameplay or mastery over the difficult but extremely satisfying power weapons, is among the best things about the game. And that brings me to my final element, which is sort of a sub-element of hype. If I had to pick a single attribute, a single quality about Gears to be my number one, it's the game's clutch factor. Because technical skill was such a factor in Gears, particularly with movement and with the shotgun, individual players always had huge opportunity to turn entire games around with one big play. This was even true in situations where a player was heavily disadvantaged. In competitive Gears, rounds were 4 minutes long. A win or loss was only achieved if one team was completely wiped out. So if one team had just one player alive against a full opposing team and the time ran out, it was considered a draw. This put pressure on the team with more players alive to close out a round and convert their advantage into the full point. But it wasn't easy, and it would often lead to one team overextending. Especially in maps with lots of cover, like canals. Because of Gears' higher time to kill from range, a lone player against a team of 2, let's say, could theoretically run away endlessly and aim for a timeout to secure a draw. The team of 2, especially if time was low, would often be forced to split up, with one player continuing the chase and the other going to cut the opposing player off to put him in a box. This did, though, give the lone player an opportunity. Once he realized what was happening, which was made easier by his dead teammates calling out the opposing team's locations by cycling through cameras, another of Gears' features, he could double back and take a 1v1 with the player chasing him, or sprint ahead to catch the player cutting him off. If the other player was not in position yet, this often represented a true 1v1, and the player in a 1v2 will always take that opportunity. If he could secure a 1v1, the lone player would be forced to be aggressive to seize the moment, to maximize the brief window of time until his enemy's teammate was back in position. The player getting pushed on the team of 2 would often want to play passively, keeping out of enemy shotgun range until his teammate was there and helping him. If a power weapon was on the map, this provided another element. If a lone player was in a better position to pick it up, this would often be the strategy instead. These types of situations were common and made Gears incredibly exciting for comebacks. Everyone loves an underdog. It's part of our DNA as human beings. We always want to see an upset, and Gears gave ample opportunity. Combined with the high skill ceiling of the shotgun, these clutch situations, particularly if the lone player won, would make the crowd lose their mind. And competitively, if a lone player could clutch out a round, this provided a huge momentum swing, with the opposing team often being severely demoralized. Sure, other games do have this dynamic. We've all seen the great clutches of Counter-Strike and COD, but something about it in Gears hit different. It was the shotgun and the close-range play that forced hype situations. It was the bodies exploding. It was the egos, the body humping, the executions and the curb stomps. It was about one lone player being able to strike fear into a full team of 4. One more thing that needs to be mentioned on this front: trash talk. I think by now, thanks to Nick Merckx, Gears' trash talk is generally accepted to be the most intense and most personal of any competitive video game. Due to its masculine characters, high skill, and flashy gameplay, Gears attracted the big egos, the dudes who thought they were God's gift to gaming and wanted to prove it. When you bring this all together, a culture of shit talk was inevitable.
But that's why his team is so strong.
Yo, check it for your fight! Check it for your fight! The series is over! Fuck out of here, you fucking idiots! You guys got shit on! Absolutely world star! Fuck out of here! Get the fuck off the stage! Dumbass kings!
Classic Gears will always have a place in my heart. Yes, I know I am biased. Much of my high school years were spent playing this game. I would come home from school each day at 3 p.m. and try my ass off for 6 or 7 hours straight in scrims and in game battles matches. These were great times. I met a few lifelong friends online in this era, one of whom even came to my wedding a few years back. But I truly believe the game was special at a competitive level. It had an unmatched level of hype, a truly unparalleled clutch factor, and a flashiness brought out by its violence and high skill ceiling. The game had in-depth strategies and a slower tactical pace than other shooters of the time, enabling big moments and more defined opportunities to outplay. Spectators loved it as they could get hyped right alongside the players. Gears held a special place alongside Halo at MLG at the dawn of console esports. I don't think it gets the attention it deserves. The game certainly fell off, and it doesn't have the same status it once did, but with Gears E-Day, and hopefully a return to its roots, I have hope Gears can rise again. It still hits its own niche. It's a unique game that doesn't have a true competitor. Long live Gears, the greatest competitive shooter of all time. Thank you for watching.